God says no. He says, we're going to separate. We're going to separate. We're going to make it holy. What makes Israel holy isn't like special stuff flies out of. Like Levi, we're thinking like special things fly out of the ground when you're there because it's like holy. You know, it's like spiritual. Like there's like incense. Smells like incense, and you know, like you walk around and like you spin and stuff. Like you feel like you're on LSD. We thought it was like that there, but it's not. It's not there like that at all. It just means separated. It's different from the rest of it. So to be different, it has to be separate. It has to be smaller. It has to be like donut. Like we're the donut hole, and then we're surrounded by a big sea of like a bagel, like the big bagel of Goyim around us, and we're like the middle of the bagel. We're the very center of the bagel.
It's a lot like a woman. There's like so much to a woman, but like right in the center.
All right, Levi, next thing.
That was more like the old Levi.
Yeah, that's old.
Because I'm not going to even go into any detail.
No, that's Levi 1.1.
I'm just going to like cut it off right there.
Yeah.
And it's totally effortlessly for me to cut it off right there because I've been transformed. I'm a new man. So I'm not going to get into like the nitty-gritty details. I'm not going to say, oh, and that reminds me when I went out with this black chick. You know, I'm a changed man.
Yeah, it's good to see you've...
I've left that behind. Because like, even though I literally haven't been to Kivrot Hatava.
Yeah.
I haven't literally been there, but I've spiritually been there.
Mm.
You know, I've left behind my desires and lusts. So society.
I can't imagine you having a lust. You seem like a man without lust.
That's what a lot of people tell me.
Yeah, you seem very without lust.
Unlusting, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what a lot of girls tell me. They say, Levi, you're just so unlustful. You know, don't you find me attractive? And it's like, no, you're very beautiful, but my soul's just so in love with Torah.
No, I thought you were going to say, I can't see, only beauty I can sense from you is your inner beauty.
Yeah, the neshama.
You see, with those sunglasses, you see right through
exactly.
into their souls.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll have to try that line.
Yeah, that's a good line too, by the way.
So, society's most important question it needs to answer is, what is our attitude towards murder? So every book of the Torah reinforces that by man shall murderers be killed. Setting up a good society depends on dealing with the question, what do you do with murderers? Now, doesn't mean that every murderer needs to be put to death, but still that needs to be the law on the books to deter people. That our society holds that murder is very serious, and we have on the books that if you're found guilty through our judicial system of committing murder, then that's the ultimate penalty. And even accidental killers don't just get away with nothing. You know, they have to run to a city of refuge and find a haven there. So our society has a cavalier attitude towards murder. We had some, like, you know, we have NFL football players who killed people, you know, drunk driving. You don't get to play in, you know, football in ancient Israel, you know, after you mowed someone down with an accidental killing.
You can kill somebody and still play football, but you cannot kill a dog.
Right.
Yeah, that was a big hassle. But if you kill somebody...
So I'm going to just talk about the mitzvah of religious Zionism. And you can...
No, I want to talk about this murder thing first. I think it's very important. I want to talk about this. I think we touched on this before, but I just want to bring it up because I think it's timely. Torah is a big fan of the death penalty. Torah says that if somebody kills somebody else, what do we do with them, Levi?
We put them to death.
We put them to death. Torah considers that humane. That's a humane way to treat a human. Because a person lives and dies. That's what humans do. So to put someone to death, that is humane. What is not humane, Levi? Sticking somebody in a prison. Sticking a person in a prison is not humane.
Or he gets raped.
Because that's what you do with animals. Animals you put in cages. It is morally obtuse, to say the very least, to compare a human with other forms of animals. If you can't figure out what the difference is between a person and an animal, we have bigger problems, don't we, as a society? They should never be compared. Humans and animals are not comparable. You put animals in cages, you don't put humans in cages. You're treating them like animals. Torah has no concept of a prison. The only time that we see prison in the written Torah is by what, Levi? They threw Joseph in the dungeon, right? They threw Joseph in the dungeon. That's an Egyptian. That's a Goyish concept. It's got no concept. Judaism has no concept of that. Judaism only says that what do we do with this guy who collected sticks on Shabbos, right? Because he was sitting in jail at the time. Because we hold someone in the jail until awaiting trial, speedy trial, right? But once you have a trial and it's determined what to do with them, we have 3 modes of punishment. What are they, Levi?
I'll let you.
Okay. If a person, we have the death penalty for someone who killed.
Oh, fines, monetary fines.
We have so if
indentured servitude.
Exactly, Levi. Let's say like somebody ripped off Bernie Madoff. What would be the punishment for Bernie Madoff?
No strangling.
No, they would not strangle him. What would they do with him, Levi? He has to.
You have to pay back all his money.
He has to pay back all his money.
And then he has to go to work for the people he's ripped off.
If he can't pay it off, he has to pay it off, and then he has to pay it off again. So he has to replace all the money that he's stolen from these people, and then he has to replenish them double that. So if he owes someone $5, he stole $5, he pays them 10. You pay what's called kafel. You pay double. Okay, he doesn't have $10, right? Because he blew it, right?
So you have to set him up with a few billion so he can start another fund.
Exactly.
So that he can pay back the people that he ripped off.
He has to go to work. Yeah, well, it's going to be a very long time.
On Wall Street.
Yeah, he's going to be gone a very long time because he has to do what's called indentured servitude, right? So Torah says, if it comes to a white-collar crime, such as fraud, like we talked about the Rabashkin cases at length for the last couple of months, that's a white-collar crime. And we mentioned it, like, if this was in a Torah court, he wouldn't go to prison for 27 years. He would just be forced to pay money, right? It would come out of his pocket, and he'd go back on the street the next day, right? Torah has no concept of sticking people in prisons. And we did a little research today before the show started. I met with the show historians. We have a historian staff, by the way. And do you know when the concept of prisons entered America? This is very interesting. When the colonizers came, when the pilgrims came to America, they were very biblical. Because this is a religious country built on the Bible. It's a Judeo-Christian country built on the Bible. They learned the Bible. They had no concept of prisons here in America. Did you know that? They had the death penalty, which they used infrequently, which is just like Torah. We don't necessarily use it. You explain, just it's on the books. They believed in public lashes, public beatings. We had public beatings, right? We're good with that. They believed you don't put someone to death or punish them for white-collar crimes like petty theft and theft. What you do instead is have them be indentured servants, right? This is all Torah ideas, right? This is all beautiful. Then came along the Enlightenment period. And, oh, look at me, I'm so liberal, and I'm so progressive. I'm a liberal progressive, and I'm doing my own thinking. I'm a thinker. And they decided, oh, it's not right that we do all those things. Those are barbaric. We don't hit people and we don't put them to death. What do we do instead? We're going to take them and stick them in a cage. And it was the liberals who came up with this attitude of sticking people in prisons, and they introduced this in the early 1800s here in America. And until then, we did not have that, right? But the liberals came and they said, oh, it's so progressive to stick people behind bars. Really? I think it's barbaric. I am ashamed of the fact that there are prisons here in America. I think it's inhumane. I think it's barbaric, and I think that they should be
so much of my life have I lived within a cage of my own sinful desires. Just like I've been in prison. I've been in prison, and now I can say with the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
You're leaving? Okay.
So you can go walk out your sister.
I'm going to walk my sister.
And I'll carry on with the show. I'm going to talk about religious Zionism.
I'll find out tomorrow what you said. Okay.
So folks, you can trust me. I'm going to set you straight about religious Zionism. Don't listen to what the rabbi had to say. When the Torah says Israel, it means Israel. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
All right, I'll be right back.
Okay. So this week's Torah portion is Masei. which is the last Torah portion in the book of Numbers. It's basically the end of the